Hi everyone, welcome back to the Behind the Scenes series. Today, I'll be walking you through this time-lapse build of the marketing dashboard. If you'd like to see how the finished dashboard works, there's a link above where you can explore the full functionality. All the resources are available for download in the description, so you can follow along step by step. Let's dive in. We'll start with a blank Power BI file. First, bring in the data from Excel. After that, select the file, data, and fiscal year, then click Transform Data to open the Power Query Editor. Next, instead of creating a new calendar table, we'll reuse an existing one. Copy the dim date table from the template and paste it into this file. When that's done, click Close and apply to load everything into the model. With the data ready, switch to the model view to set up the relationships. Drag the date field from the data table and connect it to the dim date table. Once the relationship is in place, move on to the table view for a quick round of cleanup. Create a new column to extract the fiscal year from dim date, using the DAX formula from the BI template. Repeat this step to add the fiscal month column. While we're here, let's also sort the field for the dim date table. Select fiscal month, then go to Sort by Column and choose F month number. Next, let's head to the report view and begin designing the dashboard layout. Open the canvas background and from there, change the background color to gray. And reduce the transparency to 0 for a solid backdrop. With that done, let's create the background for the lower panels. From the Insert ribbon, go ahead and open the Shapes menu, then choose a rounded rectangle as the base shape. After that, close the filter pane to free up some space on the canvas, and carefully resize the rectangle before positioning it neatly at the location of the first panel. Then we'll format the shape by reducing the rounded corners to 4%, adjusting the fill color to white, and setting its transparency to 20%. Remove the border entirely too. Once we've finished setting up the first shape, the next step is to duplicate it so we can reuse the same formatting for the second panel. And move the new shape into position. Next, go ahead and create another duplicate of the shape for the third panel. Then carefully place it into position so that it sits neatly alongside the others. Finally, duplicate the shape once more to create the fourth panel, and then position it to align neatly with the others. With the panels now arranged, we can move on to the next element of the dashboard design. Let's insert a map visual. Then add city to the location field so that the data points appear on the map. Once the locations are in place, resize the map and position it neatly at the center of the canvas. After positioning, remove the background so it blends with the design once the map style is updated later. Also turn off the visual title since it isn't needed here. Moving into the map settings, switch the map style to grayscale and disable the option to show labels. After that, adjust the bubbles by increasing their size to 5 and updating their color to red, making them stand out clearly against the neutral backdrop. With the map in place, let's move on to adding the dashboard title. From the Home ribbon, insert a text box. Set the font size to 36. Change the color to a lighter tone of black and type Marketing Dashboard. Then put your cursor here and press Enter to place Dashboard on the second line. After that, adjust the text box size and position it at the top left. Also remove the background. And we're done with the title. Next, let's bring in the social media platform icons. Begin by going to the Insert ribbon, selecting Image, and browsing for the Facebook logo, which will serve as the first icon. Once it's inserted, we'll move on to formatting. Start by unchecking the Lock Aspect Ratio option, then scale it down to fit neatly, and position it at the very top spot. With the first icon in place, continue by repeating these same steps for the Instagram logo. Again, make sure to uncheck the Lock Aspect Ratio, Resize the image for consistency and align it just below the Facebook icon so that the placement looks orderly. Finally, let's add the TikTok logo to complete the set. Once again, uncheck the lock aspect ratio, adjust the size to match the others, and then position it at the last spot beneath the Instagram icon. Now, let's make these icons interactive by turning them into clickable elements. To do this, insert a button slicer and add the social media field. Once the slicer is in place, take a moment to resize it so it can align neatly with the scale of the icons and then position it precisely over them. Remove its background so the logos remain clearly visible, and disable the title. Next, open the layout settings. Switch the arrangement to single column and reduce the spacing to 2 for a tighter alignment with the icons. Then, under the callout value settings, increase the transparency to 100, which will hide the text completely. From there, move on to the buttons formatting. Remove both the border and the fill, change the shape to a rounded rectangle, and the corner to 26 to round the sides of the shape. For the hover state, enable the fill, and set its transparency to 65%, giving a subtle highlight effect. Finally, for the selected state, enable the fill again. Change its color to a lighter shade of black, and adjust the transparency to 55% so the active choice stands out without overpowering the design. Now that the buttons are set up, let's give them a quick test. Hovering over the icons should show a white highlight, and clicking on them will display the gray selection as intended. Next, let's create the background shape for the Quick Stats section. From the Insert ribbon, open the Shapes menu and choose a rounded rectangle. Once added, begin by resizing the shape to fit the intended space and position it on the right side of the map. With the shape in place, we'll move on to the formatting. Increase the rounded corners to 48% to round out the sides of the shape. Then update the fill color to white so that it stays consistent with the design of the lower panels. Adjust the transparency to 47% so the map remains slightly visible beneath. And finally, remove the border to keep the overall style clean and modern. The next step is to add a clear title for this section. Insert a text box, then change the text color to a lighter tone of black to keep it subtle yet readable, and type in Quick Stats. After that, resize the text box to a suitable size and place it just above the background shape, so it acts as a title for the section. Make sure to turn off the text box background so it blends seamlessly with the design. With the Quick Stats section in place, let's now set up a dedicated table to keep all of our DAX measures organized in one place. From the Home ribbon, click on Enter Data. Give the table a clear name such as Measure Table, and then load it into the model. Once this table is created, expand the data pane. Right-click on the measure table and select New Measure. Here, we'll begin by adding the total clicks measure, a key base calculation for the dashboard. After that, remove the default column 1 since it isn't required, and then continue by creating the rest of the measures needed to power the visuals. I'll fast forward this setup, but all the DAX formulas are included in the downloadable BI template for you to follow or reuse. With the measures in place, the next step is to add a fiscal year selector to make the dashboard more interactive. To begin, close the data pane and switch over to the build pane. From there, insert a slicer visual and assign the Select FY field to it. With the field in place, take a moment to carefully resize the slicer and position it neatly just below the dashboard title. Also remove the background so the slicer blends naturally with the dashboard. And then head into the slicer settings. Here, set the style to tile for a more user-friendly layout. Then enable Single Select to limit the choice to 1 year. And turn off the slicer header to keep it minimal. Once all of that is done, let's do a quick test by selecting FY2022 to confirm that the slicer responds as expected. Now, let's set up a card visual to showcase the quick stats. Start by inserting a new card and then add in the measure selected year likes label, selected year shares label, and selected year comments label for the data fields. Once added, we'll resize the card and position it just above the quick stats background so it aligns neatly with the design. Next, open the padding settings and set all sides to 0, so the visual fits tightly without leaving extra space around it. Remove the background as well. In the layout options, reduce the space between cards to 4 for a more compact arrangement. For the callout value, adjust the font size down to 10. And we'll also disable the label since we only want the numbers visible. Then, go into the card settings to fine-tune the padding, switch it from default to custom, and set the left padding to 3, while keeping the top, bottom, and right at 0. Also, turn off both the card background and border for a clean, lightweight appearance. Finally, let's make these quick stat cards more engaging by adding icons. Starting with the likes measure, enable the image option. And then click on Browse to select the heart icon from your folder, so the card clearly conveys the idea of likes. Once applied, position it on the left side of the text, align it to the bottom, and increase the spacing to 8 so there's enough breathing room. Then, turn off the fixed size option and reduce the image area to 32% so it balances neatly with the text. Next, for the shares measure, enable the image option and browse to select a share symbol such as an arrow or forward icon. Place it on the left of the text just like before, align it to the bottom, and set the spacing to 8. Then disable the fixed size option and scale the image area down to 32%, keeping it consistent with the likes card. Lastly, let's update the comments card. Enable the image, browse for a speech bubble icon to represent discussions, and apply the same formatting. Positioned on the left, aligned to the bottom, with spacing set to 8. Again, turn off fixed size and shrink the image area to 32% so it fits neatly with the text. And with that, the quick stats section is complete. At the moment, hovering over a red dot on the map only shows the campaign city name. Let's enhance this by displaying the engagement stats for each city through a tooltip. Start by adding a new page to the report and rename it Tooltips so that its purpose is clear. Then go back to the first page and rename it Dashboard, ensuring both pages are properly labeled for easier navigation later. On the Tooltips page, insert a new card visual and add the city field to data. Once the field is added, go ahead and resize the card, then position it at the top so the tooltip displays the city name prominently as the first detail. In the padding settings, set top and bottom to 0. Remove the background too. For the callout value, adjust the font size to 18 so the city name stands out clearly. Turn off the label to keep the design uncluttered. And under layout, align the text to the top so it maintains a clean and professional look. In the card formatting, switch the padding settings to custom, and set the left padding to 14, and keep both the top and bottom values at 0 to maintain tight alignment vertically. Turn off the background and border too. Finally, enable the accent bar. Set its color to red to match the city dots. And increase the width to 6 for visibility. That completes our first card used to display the city name. Now, let's move on to the next card. Insert another card visual to display the engagement metrics. And add the field selected year likes label, selected year shares label, and selected year comments label into the data field. Once the fields are added, carefully adjust the size of the second card so that it fits proportionally and sits neatly just beneath the first card. At the same time, remove all the internal padding from this card and disable the background to keep the design clean. Under Layout, set the spacing between cards to 4. Then, move into the callout values settings, to adjust the font size to 12 for better readability, and also disable the label. Next, under the card formatting, switch the padding option from normal to custom, set the left padding to 3 so the text doesn't sit flush against the edge, and leave the top, bottom, and right sides at 0 to preserve a balanced, compact layout. Also disable both the background and the border. Now, to align this tooltip with the style of the Quick Stats section, we'll add icons for each metric to keep the layout consistent. For the likes metric, enable the image option. And browse to your files to select the heart icon you've chosen to represent engagement. Once the image is added, position it to the left of the text, adjust the vertical alignment to bottom, and increase the spacing to 8 so there's a clear visual separation. Then turn off fixed size and reduce the image area down to 40%, ensuring the icon doesn't overpower the text but still remains visible. We can now repeat the same process for the shares metric. Enable the image setting and browse to select a share icon to visually represent it. After inserting the image, position the icon to the left of the text, align it at the bottom for consistency, and set the spacing to 8 so there's enough breathing room between icon and value. Just like before, disable the fixed size option and reduce the image area down to 40% to maintain a balanced look. Finally, apply the exact same formatting approach to the comments metric, this time using a speech bubble icon, so that all three metrics share a consistent and polished design style. Apply the same formatting again, position it to the left of the text, align it at the bottom, and set the spacing to 8. Then disable the fixed size, and reduce the image area to 40% for consistency. With that last step completed, let's move on to format the tooltips canvas. At the canvas settings, change the canvas type to custom, and then resize the page so it matches the layout. After that, move over to page information and update the page type to tooltip. Now that the custom tooltip page is ready, the next task is to connect it back to the map visual on the dashboard. Head back to the dashboard page, select the map visual, and in the Properties pane, open the tooltip settings. From here, assign the tooltip page we just created so that whenever users hover over a city dot, the engagement stats will appear. With the tooltip now configured and successfully linked, it's time to move on to the lower half of the dashboard. We'll start by expanding the build pane and inserting our first visual for this section, a clustered column chart. Move on to assign campaign to the x-axis, and then add both prior year return on ad spend and selected year return on ad spend to the y-axis. To make the chart easier to follow, rename these fields to prior year and selected year for clarity. Once that's done, close the build pane, then resize the chart so it aligns neatly within the first panel, and adjust its position to sit properly inside the panel area. Then set the top and left padding to 10, and remove the background so the chart maintains a clean look. Also, update the title to Return on Ad Spend by Campaign, and set the font size to 12 for readability. Next, we'll refine the axes. For the x-axis, reduce the font size to 8 and switch off the axis title to keep the bottom area uncluttered. For the y-axis, turn off both the values and the title so the focus remains on the chart data itself. In the legend, also disable the title to keep it simple. Finally, apply custom colors to the columns. Set the prior year series to a gray shade, and the selected year series to red, keeping the style consistent with the overall dashboard theme. That wraps up the first panel, so let's move on to the monthly trend chart to see how the engagement rate changes over time. To begin, insert a line chart and add fiscal month to the x-axis. After that, bring in both prior year engagement rate and selected year engagement rate to the y-axis. And then rename the fields to prior year and selected year. This makes the labels easier to read at a glance and keeps them consistent with the earlier visual. After renaming the fields, move over to the Format pane. Then resize the chart so it fits neatly within the second panel and position it properly to align with the overall layout. Also update the padding by setting the top and left to 10. And remove the background so the visual remains clean and uncluttered. Next, update the chart title to Engagement Rate Trend and set the font size to 12 for consistency. For the x-axis, turn off both the values and the axis title so the bottom area stays minimal. And do the same for the y-axis by disabling its values and title, ensuring the focus remains firmly on the data itself. For the legend, turn off the title as well to maintain consistency with the earlier chart. Moving into the line formatting, change the interpolation type to smooth, which makes the trend flow more naturally and easier to follow. Next, we'll adjust the line colors. For the prior year line, update its appearance by changing the color to gray, and then adjust the selected year line to the color red, keeping both aligned with the overall dashboard theme. With that completed, we can now move on to the third panel and build the clicks by device chart. Insert a donut chart, and in the data field, add device to legend, and selected year clicks to values, so the visual can break down total clicks by device type. Switch from build to the format pane to resize the chart to keep its proportions balanced, and then position it neatly within the third panel. Next, update the padding settings by setting top and left to 10 and bottom to 0. After that, turn off the chart background to keep the design simple. Moving on, update the title to clicks by device type, set the font size to 12 for consistency, and also reduce the spacing between the label and value to 0. Since the device types will already be clearly indicated by the slice labels, you can also disable the legend. And in the slices setting, adjust the inner radius to 76, creating a wider open center. Then, to stay aligned with the dashboard's color scheme, set the desktop series to a lighter shade of red for a softer tone, and the mobile series to a darker red for stronger contrast. For the detail labels, update the label contents to category, % of total, so each slice clearly shows both the device type and its share of total clicks. And for the values, reduce the font size to 8, ensuring the labels remain visible but don't dominate the chart. Finally, under Properties, turn off the tooltips, since the labels themselves are already showing all the necessary information. With the donut chart now polished, we're ready to move on to the final visual in this section. Insert a matrix. After that, add the field add to the rows. And bring in selected year impressions, selected year click-through rate, selected year spend, and selected year conversion value into the values field. At this point, rename each field by removing the selected year prefix, making the names clearer and easier to understand. Next, at the Visual Format pane, adjust the size of the matrix and position it neatly within the final panel. Update the padding by setting the top and left to 10. And disable the background to keep the design clean. Then, enable the visual title, type in Add Level Performance Metrics, and set its font size to 12 for consistency with the earlier visuals. In the grid settings, update the border color to red to match the dashboard's theme. For its options, apply a row padding of 5 for better spacing, and reduce the global font size to 9 for a more compact look. Under Values, add a light gray background, with alternating light pink rows for readability. For the column headers, also apply a light gray background to match the style. And turn off auto size width so column sizes can be adjusted manually. For the row grand total, format the background with a dark gray fill so it stands out. And apply this format to the labels too. Now, let's refine the individual columns. For impressions, display the values in millions with to decimal places. For click-through rate, apply the settings to both the header and total, and then center align the values. For spend, format the values in thousands with no decimals. And for conversion column, also display the values in thousands with no decimals. Finally, manually adjust the column widths so everything aligns neatly and the table remains easy to read. With all visuals in place, let's configure interactions to make the dashboard dynamic. Select the map visual, go to the Format ribbon, and click Edit Interactions. Set its interaction mode to filter for both the bar chart and the donut chart. Then click the bar chart and set its interaction mode to filter for the donut chart. Do the same for the line chart, setting it to filter for both the bar chart and donut chart. Next, click the donut chart and set it to filter for the bar chart. Lastly, set the matrix to filter for both the donut chart and bar chart. Once all interactions are set, click Edit Interaction again to exit the editing mode. And with that, we've completed the step-by-step guide for building the marketing dashboard from scratch. If you're looking for more dashboard tips and templates, be sure to check out my earlier videos. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.